She was only clearing plates when the most feared man in Chicago stood up, pointed across the room, and said, "That waitress. Bring her here." What kind of man notices a girl everyone else treats like furniture? And what kind of girl says yes when his offer could save her mother's life but cost her everything else? Riley Brooks had aching feet, unpaid hospital bills, and a heart full of prayers nobody seemed to answer. 1 minute she was invisible under the golden chandeliers of a luxury restaurant. The next, she was staring into the eyes of Cole Maddox, a crime boss with blood on his name and secrets behind every door. This is not just a story about danger. It is about power, mercy, love, and the moment a forgotten woman discovers her worth. Stay until the end, like this video, and comment where you're watching from. The number on the black card felt heavier than it should have. Riley Brooks carried it home in the pocket of her waitress uniform, pressed flat against the folded hospital notice that had already ruined her day before Cole Maddox ever looked in her direction. The card had no name, no title, no company logo. Just 10 silver numbers on thick black paper. The kind of paper that made every cheap thing in her life feel even cheaper by comparison. Outside the velvet crown, Chicago breathed cold against her face. It was past midnight, and the Gold Coast still glowed like money never had to sleep. Private cars slid along the curb. Women in silk dresses stepped into warm back seats. Men with polished shoes laughed into phones, their voices loose with expensive wine and the confidence of people who had never counted quarters for gas. Riley stood under the restaurant awning with her coat buttoned wrong and her hair slipping from its bun. Across the street, a black SUV waited at the corner. It did not idle like a normal car. It waited like a decision. The driver stood beside it in a dark suit, hands folded in front of him, his eyes forward as if he had been carved out of the night. He did not call her name. He did not wave. He simply existed there, patient and certain, as if he already knew she would come. Riley took 1 step toward the street. Then she stopped. The city noise rushed back around her. Tires hissed over wet pavement. A bus sighed at the curb. Somewhere a siren rose and fell between buildings. Her breath fogged in the air, and suddenly she could feel everything at once. The ache in her feet, the sting in her wrist where Cole had touched her, the final notice in her pocket, the taste of fear at the back of her throat. She turned away from the SUV and started walking. The driver did not follow. That somehow frightened her more. Memorial North Hospital sat 12 blocks away, a tower of glass and white light where people went to bargain with God and insurance companies. Riley had learned every entrance over the past 8 months. Main lobby during visiting hours, side door after midnight, staff elevator when security was busy. She knew which vending machine stole dollars and which nurses would let her stay past the posted time if she brought them coffee. The automatic doors opened with a soft mechanical sigh. Warm hospital air wrapped around her, smelling of antiseptic old coffee and flowers, beginning to rot in plastic vases. The lobby was almost empty except for a security guard half asleep behind the desk and a man in a work jacket staring at the floor like bad news had sat down beside him and refused to leave. Riley kept her head low and walked toward the elevators. On the 7th floor, the lights were dim. Machines beeped behind closed doors. Nurses moved quietly from room to room, their shoes whispering against polished linoleum. Riley paused outside room 714 and looked through the narrow glass panel. Her mother was asleep. Karen Brooks looked smaller every time Riley saw her. The disease had taken weight first, then color, then the stubborn brightness from her eyes. She used to fill rooms without trying, laughing too loud, singing off key while cooking boxed pasta, telling Riley that the world could break your heart, but it did not get to keep the pieces. Now she slept with a pale blue blanket pulled to her chest, one hand resting near the IV line. Riley opened the door quietly. The room was lit by the glow of monitors and the small lamp beside the bed. Someone had left the television on mute. A weather reporter gestured over a map of Illinois while snow clouds gathered on screen. Riley sat in the chair beside the bed and reached for her mother's hand. Karen stirred. "Baby, I'm here," Riley whispered. Karen opened her eyes, and for a second the pain lifted just enough for her to smile. "You smell like garlic butter." Riley laughed softly, though her throat hurt. "That's the lobster special. Did rich people send back perfectly good food again? One woman sent back soup because it looked sad." Karen closed her eyes and smiled. "Soup does have feelings." Riley held on to that smile like it could keep the room from collapsing. Karen turned her head slightly. "You're here late. I wanted to check on you. You worked a double." "I'm fine." "No, you're 24 and already making the same face your grandmother made when the rent was due." Riley looked down at their joined hands. Her mother's fingers were cold. "I'm just tired." Karen studied her for a long moment. Mothers had a way of hearing all the words their children swallowed. "Did the hospital talk to you again?" Riley's chest tightened. "No." "Riley, they always talk," she said lightly. "It's their favorite hobby." Karen's eyes filled with a sadness Riley hated. "You cannot keep doing this." "I can. You left school. I can go back. You work until your feet bleed." "They do not bleed. Do not lie to a woman who taught you how to walk." Riley pressed her lips together. The laugh she tried to make came out broken. Karen squeezed her hand with the little strength she had. "If the treatment stops, we will figure out the rest." There it was. The sentence Riley could not bear. Spoken gently like surrender could be wrapped in love and made acceptable. "No," Riley said. Karen exhaled. "Sweetheart, no. Do not do that. Do not make peace with it just because the bill is ugly." Karen looked at her daughter with tired tenderness. "Some things are bigger than us." Riley leaned closer, her voice shaking. "Not you." The monitor beeped steadily between them. Karen lifted her hand and touched Riley's cheek. "My brave girl," she whispered. "You have been fighting so long you forgot you are allowed to be afraid." Riley closed her eyes. For one dangerous second, Cole Maddox's voice came back to her. "Invisible people see everything." She saw the bruises under her mother's eyes. She saw the IV tape pulling at thin skin. She saw the unopened pudding cup on the tray because nausea had stolen even small pleasures. She saw the plastic folder on the counter with Memorial North printed across the front, cheerful blue letters on paperwork that could decide whether someone lived or died. "I'm not afraid," Riley lied. Karen smiled like she knew better. A soft knock came at the door. Riley turned. A woman in a gray suit stood just outside holding a tablet against her chest. Her smile was professional, practiced, and apologetic before she had even opened her mouth. "Miss Brooks," she said quietly. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" Riley kissed her mother's hand. "I'll be right back." Karen watched her go with worry. She was too tired to hide. In the hallway, the woman introduced herself as Mrs. Landry from Patient Accounts, though Riley already knew her. People from Patient Accounts had a certain look. Soft voice, careful posture, eyes trained to avoid becoming too human. "I'm sorry to catch you at this hour," Mrs. Landry said. Riley folded her arms to keep her hands from shaking. "You have an update." Mrs. Landry glanced down at the tablet. The extension request was reviewed. Riley already knew. The answer sat in the woman's mouth before she released it. It was denied. The hallway seemed to lengthen. Riley nodded once. "The remaining balance for the treatment cycle is $17,380, Mrs. Landry continued. "Payment is required by Friday at 5 in order to continue the experimental protocol without interruption." Friday. The word hit like a closing door. Riley stared past Mrs. Landry toward the nurse's station where a young nurse laughed quietly at something on her phone. Life kept moving in little pockets, careless and ordinary. What happens if I cannot pay by Friday? Mrs. Landry's face tightened. The care team would transition your mother back to the standard treatment plan. You mean the one that stopped working? Mrs. Landry lowered her eyes. The current protocol is not covered under her plan. Riley felt something hot and helpless rise in her chest. She is not a plan. She is my mother. I understand. No, you do not. The words came out sharper than Riley intended. Mrs. Landry absorbed them with the patience of someone who had been hated by desperate people before. I truly am sorry, she said. Riley looked at the tablet, then at the closed door behind her where her mother lay pretending not to be scared. Can I make a partial payment? It would not secure the full cycle. I can bring $2,000 by tomorrow. I wish that changed the requirement. Can we appeal again? There is no guarantee it would be reviewed in time. Riley laughed once, but there was no humor in it. In time, she repeated, That is a funny phrase in a cancer ward, Mrs. Landry's eyes softened. I know this is difficult. Riley stepped back before she said something she could not take back. Thank you for telling me. The woman nodded and walked away, her heels clicking softly down the hall. Riley stayed where she was until she could breathe without making a sound. When she returned to the room, Karen was watching the muted television again. She did not ask. Riley did not tell. That was their mercy for each other. I handled it, Riley said. Karen turned to her. You always say that. Because I always do. Karen's eyes shone. Come here. Riley climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed the way she used to when she was little, and thunderstorms rattled their apartment windows. Karen shifted to make room, wincing despite herself. Riley rested her head near her mother's shoulder. For a while they listened to the machines. Karen's fingers moved weakly through Riley's hair. You remember when you were 6 and you tried to sell lemonade in February? Riley smiled against the blanket. It was an untapped market. It was snowing. People were thirsty. You made $4 and gave 3 of it to a man outside the grocery store. He looked cold. Karen's voice softened. You came home crying because you could not give him the last dollar, too. Riley swallowed. You told me I did the best I could. I did. It was not enough. Karen was quiet. Then she said, Enough is not always ours to decide. Riley did not answer. Her eyes stayed open in the dim hospital room fixed on the shadow of the IV pole against the wall. By 2 a.m, Karen had fallen asleep again. Riley left the hospital with the black card still in her pocket. The walk home took her through streets that changed block by block. The polished glow of downtown faded into late-night diners, shuttered storefronts, and apartment windows with blue television light flickering behind curtains. A man slept under the train tracks, wrapped in a green blanket. A woman in scrubs smoked outside a clinic and stared at nothing. A delivery truck rattled past, spraying dirty water near Riley's shoes. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor of a narrow brick building in Pilsen, above a laundromat that made the hallway smell like detergent and hot dust. The stairs creaked under her weight. Someone's dog barked once behind a door, then gave up. Inside the apartment was dark except for the stove light. Riley dropped her keys into a bowl shaped like a lemon. Karen had bought it years ago at a garage sale and said every home needed one ridiculous thing. The apartment still held her mother everywhere. A red scarf on the coat hook. A chipped mug with sunflowers near the sink. A stack of recipe cards in Karen's looping handwriting tucked beside the microwave. Riley sometimes avoided looking at those things because they made the place feel haunted by someone who was still alive. She took off her shoes and sucked in a breath as pain burned through her toes. One heel had rubbed the skin raw. She cleaned it in the bathroom without turning on the overhead light, then changed into sweatpants and an old nursing school sweatshirt. The letters across the front were faded from too many washes. Riley stood in front of the mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Her hair was falling loose. Mascara had smudged beneath her eyes. There was a faint red mark around her wrist from where Cole Maddox had caught her hand at the restaurant. She touched it. His grip had not hurt. That bothered her. If he had been cruel, the choice might have been easier. If he had threatened, if he had laughed, if he had looked at her the way men in expensive suits sometimes looked at women who carried plates and needed tips, she could have hated him cleanly. But he had watched her like she was a locked door he already had the key to. Riley went to the kitchen table and emptied her purse. Tip money, phone, lip balm, hospital notice, black card. She counted the cash first. $187. Then she checked her bank account. $213. Rent would be due in 8 days. The electric bill was already late. Her phone bill had a warning at the top in red letters. Her credit card was nearly maxed from prescriptions, parking fees, and groceries Karen could barely eat. She opened her laptop and pulled up loan applications she had already filled out twice. Denied. Denied. Pending, which meant denied politely. She called her aunt in Milwaukee even though she knew what the answer would be. Aunt Denise cried on the phone and said she could send $200 after payday. Riley thanked her like it was enough. She called a medical charity and left a message. She called the financial aid office at her old nursing program and listened to a recorded voice explain office hours. She called a number from an online emergency loan site, then hung up when the man on the line asked if she owned a vehicle. At 4:17, Riley sat on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinet. The city outside her window was turning quiet in that strange hour before dawn. Not asleep, just holding its breath. Her phone lay on the floor beside the black card. She picked up the card and stared at the numbers until they blurred. Cole Maddox. Everyone in Chicago had heard something. Her manager said he owned half the restaurants that mattered and controlled the other half by fear. A bartender once said Cole's father had run the city's old South Side routes with blood and bribes. One dishwasher claimed a man disappeared after cheating Maddox on a property deal. Another said Cole paid for funerals in neighborhoods he did not live in and sent Christmas gifts to families who would never admit they knew him. Rumors made monsters out of men. Sometimes the monsters helped build the rumors. Riley searched his name on her phone, then stopped before pressing enter. She did not want headlines. She did not want mugshots, charity photos, or gossip columns showing him beside women in gowns. She wanted an answer no search engine could give. What does a man like that want with me? The sky outside began to pale. Riley thought of her mother's hand in hers. She dialed. The phone rang once, twice. Then his voice answered low and awake. You waited longer than I expected. Riley closed her eyes. Do you sleep? Not when I'm expecting a call. From a waitress. From Riley Brooks. Her name sounded different in his mouth, not soft, not intimate, precise. She hated that he knew how to use it. You knew about my mother, she said. Yes. How? A pause, carefully. That is not an answer. It is the only one I can give you over the phone. Riley stood, anger giving her legs strength. You had no right. No. His agreement caught her off guard. No, I did not. The quiet stretched. Riley looked at the hospital notice on the table. What do you want from me to hear an offer? And after I hear it, you decide. She laughed bitterly. Men like you do not let people decide. Men like me survive because we know the difference between force and leverage. That is supposed to make me feel better, no. It is supposed to make me sound honest. Riley walked to the window. Dawn had begun to thin the darkness over the rooftops. My mother needs $17,000 by Friday. I know. Stop saying that. Then stop telling me things I already know. Her anger flared. I should hang up. You should. But he did not sound worried. Riley hated him again for being calm. If I meet you, she said slowly, it is in public. No. Her grip tightened on the phone. Then forget it. You already met me in public. Everyone saw. That makes the next conversation more dangerous, not less. Riley looked at the black card on her table. Where my driver is outside your building. Her blood went cold. She moved to the window and looked down. A black car sat at the curb beneath the weak orange glow of the streetlight. You followed me. I protected the investment of my attention. That is a disgusting sentence. It is an accurate one. You think I am getting in that car? I think your mother has until Friday. Riley's throat closed. Cole's voice softened, but only slightly. I am not asking you to trust me, Riley. That would insult both of us. I am asking you to hear terms before fear makes the decision for you. She stared down at the car. The driver stood beside it, the same still figure from outside the restaurant. Riley whispered, If you hurt me, she has no one. I know. This time the words did not sound like power. They sounded like a promise made in the dark. Riley ended the call. For several minutes, she stood completely still. Then she changed clothes. Not the waitress uniform. Not the nursing sweatshirt. She put on black jeans, a gray sweater, and her only coat with all its buttons. She pulled her hair back, washed her face, and placed the hospital notice into her purse. Then she took a small can of pepper spray from the drawer by the door. It was expired. She took it anyway. Downstairs, the driver opened the rear door without speaking. Riley looked at him. Do you have a name, Elias? Do you always stand around like a funeral director? Elias? A faint smile touched his mouth. Only before sunrise. She got into the car. The interior smelled like leather and cedar. A bottle of water waited in the cup holder. So did a white paper bag from a bakery Riley had passed 100 times and never entered because a single croissant cost more than a bus pass. She did not touch either. The car pulled away from the curb. Chicago woke slowly around them. Delivery men unloaded crates behind restaurants. Office towers caught the first color of morning. The river moved black and silver beneath bridges carrying reflections of a city that had always looked beautiful from a distance and brutal up close. Riley watched it all through tinted glass and tried not to feel like she had already crossed some invisible line. They did not drive to a warehouse. They did not drive to a basement or a club with velvet ropes. Elias took her to a boutique hotel near the river, the kind with brass doors and a lobby that smelled like fresh flowers. Maddox House. Riley stared at the name above the entrance. Of course. Inside the lobby was quiet. A woman behind the desk greeted Elias by name and did not ask Riley anything. They rode a private elevator to the top floor. Riley kept one hand inside her purse fingers around the useless pepper spray. The elevator opened into a private office with windows overlooking the river. Morning light spilled across dark wood floors. Books lined one wall. A framed black and white photograph of Chicago's old docks hung behind a wide desk. Cole Maddox stood near the window jacket off sleeves buttoned at the wrist. He turned when she entered. In daylight, he looked less like a roomer and more dangerous because of it. Younger than the stories made him. Late 30s, maybe. Dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes that seemed to notice the breath before the words. Riley, he said. Mr. Maddox. Cole? No. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Fair enough. Elias left, closing the door behind him. Riley glanced at it. Cole noticed. It is unlocked. Is that supposed to impress me? No. It is supposed to inform you. She walked to the nearest chair but did not sit. Talk. Cole picked up a folder from his desk and placed it in front of her. Your mother will be transferred today to a private oncology team at Lakeshore Medical. The treatment protocol continues without interruption. Her bills will be cleared. Future care will be covered. Riley stared at the folder but did not open it. What is the price employment? I have a job. You have exhaustion with a name tag. Her eyes narrowed. I asked for the price. Cole leaned back against the desk. I need a personal assistant. Someone outside my family. Someone not tied to my businesses. Someone intelligent, observant, and discreet. Then hire one. I am. I clear plates. You notice which men reach for water when they lie. Riley went still. Cole continued. You noticed Senator Callahan switch his glass last night after the younger man mentioned the waterfront vote. You noticed my security shift positions before dessert. You noticed your manager was afraid before she spoke to you, so you knew the request came from me and not the table. Riley's mouth went dry. You watched me? Yes. Why? Because everyone else failed to. The sentence landed too softly. She looked away first. Cole opened the folder himself and turned it toward her. $35,000 a month. Housing provided. Full medical coverage for you and your mother. Tuition covered if you return to nursing school after 6 months. Your debts cleared within the week. The numbers on the page swam. 35,000. Riley almost laughed. It was such an impossible amount that her brain refused to treat it like real money. She thought of the $187 on her kitchen table, the rent notice, the hospital deadline, her mother trying to smile through pain. Then she thought of the way people lowered their voices around Cole Maddox. What would I actually do? Manage correspondence, coordinate household matters, maintain my calendar, attend certain events, listen when needed, leave when told. That sounds simple. It is not. What are you leaving out? The things you do not need to know yet. At least you are honest about being dishonest. His mouth curved slightly. Selective truth is not the same as dishonesty. It is when men use it. Cole studied her as if he enjoyed the fact that fear had not swallowed her voice. Riley finally sat, mostly because her legs felt unsteady. Why me? She asked. Cole moved to the window. Below, the river cut through the city like a dark vein. My father believed useful people came from powerful families. Men with names, women with connections, lawyers, accountants, old blood. He looked back at her. He missed half the world because he never looked down. Riley said nothing. You have spent years in rooms where people speak freely because they do not think you count. That teaches a person things no school can. You know how to watch without being seen. You know how to endure insult without giving away the injury. You understand desperation, which means you can recognize it in others. Riley's jaw tightened. You make poverty sound like training. No, Cole said quietly. I make survival sound like skill. For the first time that morning, Riley had no answer. Cole came back to the desk, but he did not sit. There are rules, I assumed. You do not discuss what you hear. You do not open locked doors. You do not contact reporters, police, or anyone asking questions about me. You do not lie to me unless your life depends on it, and if it does, you tell me after. That is insane. That is mild compared to the rest. Riley looked at the door again. And if I say no, you leave. With my mother still dying. Cole's expression did not change, but something in his eyes cooled. Your mother is dying because the system puts a price on time, not because I made the offer. Riley flinched because it was true and because it was cruel to hear it said plainly. You are using her. Yes. The word cut through the room. Cole did not dress it up. I am using your love for your mother as leverage. You are considering using my money to save her life. Neither of us came into this clean. Riley stood so fast the chair scraped behind her. I should walk out. You should if dignity can pay the bill. Her hand swung before she decided to move. The slap cracked across his face. For one terrible second, the room went silent. Cole's head had turned slightly with the force of it. A red mark rose along his cheek. He did not touch it. He did not move toward her. Riley's hand burned. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The door opened a few inches. Elias appeared. Cole lifted one finger without looking away from Riley. Elias closed the door. Riley whispered, "I am not something you can buy." Cole's voice was low. "I know. Then stop talking like I am." He looked at her for a long time. When he spoke again, the sharpness was gone. "I am offering you a door. An ugly one, maybe. A dangerous one, certainly. But a door. I will not pretend it is charity, and I will not insult you by calling it fate." Riley's breath trembled. "What happens to people who disappoint you?" Cole's eyes darkened. "That depends on how they disappoint me. Do they disappear? Some leave. Some are sent away. Some force worse answers. That is not comforting. I am not a comforting man." "No," she said. "You are not." He nodded once as if accepting the verdict. Riley looked at the folder again. She saw numbers, medical coverage, a salary that could rebuild her life, a private room for Karen, a chance to finish school, a way out of the slow grinding machine that had been eating them alive one bill at a time. She also saw herself stepping into a house with locked doors and men who carried guns under expensive jackets. She saw Cole Maddox watching her across candlelight. "That waitress. Bring her here." "My mother cannot know who you are," Riley said. "She will know I am your employer." "No. She will think you run hotels." "I do run hotels. Do not play with me." Cole's gaze held hers. "Fine. She will not know more than she needs to. I visit her whenever I want. Within security limits." "No." His eyes narrowed. Riley stepped closer to the desk. "She is the reason I would even consider this. Do not make the mistake of thinking I will trade her for a nicer cage." Cole studied her with something almost like approval. "You visit her whenever you want," he said. "With security." Riley swallowed. "I keep my own phone." "You will have a secured phone. I keep my old one too." "No." "Then we are done." Silence. Cole looked at the folder, then at her. "Your old phone stays active. You do not use it for my business. I was not planning to. You do not bring anyone to my home. I do not bring anyone anywhere. You follow security instructions, if they make sense." "Riley." She lifted her chin. "I follow them if they keep people alive. I do not follow them just because a man with money likes hearing yes." Something shifted in the room. Cole stared at her as if the answer had surprised him. Then, slowly, he smiled. Not warmly, not kindly, but with interest. "You are going to be difficult. I am already difficult. You are catching up." He laughed once, low and brief. It changed his face in a way Riley did not want to notice. Cole picked up a pen and set it on the folder. "Take the day. Have a lawyer review it if you know one." "I do not. I can provide one." "That sounds like a trap. It is also practical." Riley touched the edge of the folder but did not take the pen. "When would I start tomorrow morning?" "That soon. Your mother starts treatment today." The words broke something in her. Riley sat back down before her knees gave out. She covered her mouth with one hand, but a small sound escaped anyway. Not quite a sob, not quite relief. Something between pain and air. Cole turned away, giving her the privacy of not being watched. That more than anything unsettled her. After a moment, she wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. "I need to see her. Elias will take you. I need to tell her something. Tell her you got a job." Riley gave a hollow laugh. She will ask what kind. Cole looked back at her. Tell her the truth you can live with. Riley hated how much that sounded like advice. She took the folder and stood. At the door, she stopped. Mr. Maddox. Cole, he said again. She ignored it. If this hurts my mother, if your world touches her in any way, I do not care who you are. I will burn down whatever I can reach. Cole's eyes stayed on hers. I believe you. Riley opened the door. Elias was waiting in the hall as if he had never moved. The ride back to the hospital felt different from the ride there. The same city passed outside, but Riley had the strange sensation of seeing it from the wrong side of glass. People hurried along sidewalks carrying coffee backpacks, flowers, briefcases. Ordinary lives, ordinary panic, ordinary hope. She looked down at the folder on her lap. Her name was printed on the first page. Riley Brooks, personal assistant to Cole Maddox. It looked like a mistake, or a sentence. At Memorial North, Elias walked her to the elevator but did not follow her up. I will be here, he said. Riley looked at him. Do you ever get tired of waiting? Yes. Then why do you do it? His eyes softened a fraction. Because Mr. Maddox pays well, and because once when my boy needed a surgeon I could not afford, he made a phone call. The elevator doors opened. Riley stepped inside. That sentence stayed with her all the way to the 7th floor. When she reached room 714, her mother was awake. A nurse was adjusting the IV. There was a new energy in the room, subtle but unmistakable. Fresh paperwork. A second doctor at the computer. A transport schedule clipped to the chart. Karen looked confused. They said I am being transferred. Riley forced a smile. That is good. To Lakeshore Medical. I know. Karen's eyes searched her face. Riley, I got a job. What job moves a patient before breakfast? Riley sat beside the bed and took her hand. A good one. Karen did not smile. Baby, look at me. Riley did. Karen's voice was weak but steady. What did you do? Riley thought of Cole's office. The slap, the folder, the open door. The way he admitted to leverage without pretending to be noble. I made a deal, Riley said. Karen's eyes filled with fear. With who? My new employer. What employer? He owns hotels, restaurants, properties. Karen kept watching her. That is not what I asked. Riley looked down at their hands. For a moment she was 6 years old again, selling lemonade in the snow, trying to save everyone with $4 and a paper cup. I do not know how to explain it yet. Karen's hand tightened around hers. If something feels wrong, you can walk away. Riley smiled sadly. Can I? Yes. Riley looked around the hospital room at the machines and the bills hidden behind polite folders, at the medicine bags dripping time into her mother's veins. I am not sure anyone gets to walk away from needing someone. Karen closed her eyes as tears slipped down her temples. Riley leaned forward and kissed her forehead. I'm going to be careful. That is what people say before they step into storms. Then I will learn the weather. Karen laughed softly through tears. You always were stubborn. I got that from you. No, Karen whispered. You made it worse. The transport team arrived an hour later. Riley watched them move her mother with careful hands. Karen tried to joke with the paramedic. She asked if the ambulance had heated seats. Riley stood in the hallway, clutching the folder to her chest, and felt the first terrifying bloom of hope. Hope was not gentle. It hurt. It opened space inside her that fear had occupied for so long she did not know what to do with the room. At Lakeshore Medical, everything changed. The private room had a view of the lake. The nurses introduced themselves without rushing. The oncologist, Dr. Elaine Mercer, spoke to Karen like she was a person instead of a file. She explained the treatment plan, the risks, the possibilities, the reasons they still had room to fight. Riley listened with her arms folded tight. When Dr. Mercer said the words "meaningful response," Karen looked at Riley. Riley had to turn away. In the hallway, she pressed both hands against the wall and breathed until she could stand upright again. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your mother is under Dr. Mercer's care. Elias will take you home when you are ready. Pack enough for permanent residence. CM, permanent residence." The phrase settled over her like cold water. Riley looked through the glass at her mother, who was speaking with the nurse color already seeming to return simply because someone had given her a chance. Then Riley looked at her own reflection in the window. A waitress with tired eyes, a daughter with no money, a woman holding a folder from a man people feared. By evening, she returned to her apartment. The rooms looked smaller than they had that morning, not because they had changed, but because Riley had. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the muffled sound of the laundromat below. Then she packed. 2 suitcases. One held clothes. Jeans, sweaters, socks, the black dress she wore to funerals and job interviews. The other held nursing textbooks, her mother's recipe cards, the lemon bowl wrapped in a towel, and a framed photo of Riley and Karen at Navy Pier when Riley was 17 and the wind had ruined both their hair. She did not pack everything. Some lives could not be folded. At 9 that night, Marcy from the Velvet Crown called. "Where the hell are you?" she asked before Riley could say hello. "At home. You were supposed to confirm tomorrow's shift. I cannot come in." Marcy went quiet. "Is this about Maddox?" Riley looked at the suitcases by the door. "Yes." "Oh, honey." The pity in her voice scraped. "I need the job." Riley said, though it was no longer true in the same way. "You need to stay breathing more." Riley closed her eyes. "What do you know about him?" Marcy hesitated. "I know people who cross him regret it. I know people he protects do not talk about it. I know he tips better than God and scares men who scare me. That is not helpful. It is honest." Riley looked at the hospital notice still lying on the table. She picked it up, folded it once, and tucked it into her bag. Did he ever hurt anyone in the restaurant? No. Did he ever threaten staff? No. Then why are we all afraid of him? Marcy sighed. Because power does not have to shout Riley. After the call, Riley walked through the apartment one last time. She washed the mug in the sink, took out the trash, turned off the stove light, then turned it back on, because the dark felt too final. In her mother's room, she folded the red scarf and placed it in her suitcase. On the dresser sat a small photograph of Riley's father taken before he left, before Karen stopped saying his name. Riley looked at it for a moment, then left it where it was. Some ghosts could keep their rooms. At 10:30, a knock sounded at the door. Riley opened it with her heart already racing. Elias stood in the hallway. "Miss Brooks." "Riley." "Riley," he corrected. "The car is downstairs." She looked behind her at the apartment. Elias waited, not rushing, not asking, just waiting. Riley picked up one suitcase. Elias reached for the other. "I can carry it." "I know." He took it anyway. Downstairs, the black car stood at the curb beneath the streetlight. The same street, the same cracked sidewalk, the same laundromat sign buzzing in the window. But nothing felt the same. Riley paused before getting in. Across the street, a little girl in pink pajamas watched from a second-floor window, her hands pressed to the glass. Riley wondered what the child saw. A woman leaving, a fancy car, a story she would fill in with whatever children imagined about strangers at night. Riley slid into the back seat. As the car pulled away, she looked back at the apartment building until it disappeared behind the corner. Her phone buzzed again. This time the message was from Karen. "Do not forget to eat." Riley laughed once, wiping quickly beneath her eye. She typed back, "Only if you promise the same." The reply came a minute later. "Deal." Riley held the phone against her chest. The city lights stretched and blurred across the window. Chicago widened around her, steel and glass, giving way to darker roads, quieter neighborhoods, then long tree-lined streets where houses hid behind gates and old money slept under slate roofs. Elias did not speak. Riley was grateful. She opened the folder once more under the soft interior light. The employment agreement waited for her signature. She had already signed one copy in Cole's office. This was hers to keep. Her name looked strange beside his. Riley Brooks and Cole Maddox, joined by ink money illness, and a choice that did not feel like freedom, but was not exactly force. She closed the folder. The car turned north toward Lake Forest. Rain began to tap against the window. Not hard, just enough to soften the world beyond the glass. Riley watched the city fall away behind her and thought of her mother in a clean room with a real chance. She thought of Cole Maddox standing in morning light, not asking forgiveness for the way he used power. She thought of the slap, the silence after it, and the fact that he had let her walk out with her pride still bruised but intact. The road narrowed. Tall iron gates appeared ahead, black against the rain-silvered night. Elias slowed the car. A camera turned toward them from a stone pillar. The gates opened without a sound. Riley sat very still as the car passed through. Beyond the gates, old trees arched over the long drive, their branches moving in the rain like hands closing behind her. The gates closed behind Riley without a sound, and somehow that silence frightened her more than the iron itself. The car moved slowly up a long private drive, tires whispering over wet stone. Ancient trees leaned over the road, their black branches shining with rain. Beyond them, the estate appeared piece by piece through the dark. First a line of lit windows, then a wide stone staircase, then the full shape of the house rising against the night like something built to outlast storms, elections, and men with guns. Riley had seen mansions before from restaurant windows and real estate ads left behind by customers who treated property like a hobby. This was different. Cole Maddox's home did not beg to be admired. It stood back from the world with cold confidence hidden behind Gates cameras and enough land to make loneliness look elegant. Elias stopped at the front steps. For a moment, Riley did not move. Her 2 suitcases sat in the trunk. Her phone was in her lap. Her mother was alive in a private hospital room because of a man waiting somewhere inside that house. She looked at her reflection in the window. Pale face, tired eyes, mouth set too tight. Then she opened the door before fear could make another decision for her. Rain touched her hair as she stepped out. The front door opened before she reached the first stair. A woman stood framed in warm light, tall and straight, with silver hair pinned into a perfect knot at the back of her head. She wore a dark dress with a string of pearls at her throat and carried herself like she had once scared entire rooms into better posture. "Miss Brooks," the woman said. Riley replied. The woman's expression did not change. "I am June Whitcomb, house manager for Mr. Maddox. You were expected 20 minutes ago." Riley glanced back at Elias. He said nothing. "I was not driving," Riley said. June's eyes moved over her coat, her wet hair, her thrift store boots, and the suitcase Elias had lifted from the trunk. In this house, time belongs to whoever is responsible for arriving. Riley was too tired to be intimidated properly. "I'll remember that the next time I control traffic." A faint pause passed between them. June turned. "Follow me." Inside the house smelled faintly of lemon oil, wood smoke, and lilies. The entrance hall rose 2 stories with a chandelier made of glass pieces that caught the light like frozen rain. A curved staircase swept up one side. Oil paintings watched from the walls. The marble floor was so polished Riley could see the blurred shadow of her own body moving across it. Her apartment could have fit inside the entryway and still had room for the laundromat downstairs. She hated that the first thing she felt was awe. June led her through the house at a pace that allowed no wandering. Riley passed a sitting room with navy velvet chairs, a library with shelves climbing to the ceiling, and a dining room where a table long enough for a wedding party sat under low golden light. Staff appeared and disappeared without speaking. A man in a gray suit crossed the hall with a phone to his ear and stopped mid-sentence when he saw Riley. His eyes moved to June, then away. That was the first lesson. Everyone looked. No one asked. Public rooms are on the main floor, June said. Family spaces are west. Staff service areas are below. Guest suites are north. Your rooms are in the east wing. My rooms, June kept walking. Mr. Maddox values precision. That does not answer the question. No, June said. It does not. They reached a quieter corridor with darker walls and softer carpet. At the end, June unlocked double doors and pushed them open. Riley stopped on the threshold. The suite was larger than her entire apartment. A sitting area faced tall windows that reflected the rain. A bedroom opened beyond it with a king-sized bed dressed in white and gray. There was a writing desk, a small bookshelf, fresh flowers, and a bathroom with marble counters and a tub big enough to make Riley think of every chipped shower tile she had ever scrubbed. On the bed lay a folded set of clothes. Black slacks, white blouses, a charcoal dress. Simple, expensive, and exactly her size. Riley walked to the bed and touched the fabric with 2 fingers. "How did you know my measurements?" June placed a key card on the desk. "Mr. Maddox is thorough. That is the second time someone has said that, like it should comfort me. It should warn you." Riley turned. June's face was calm, but not unkind. That made her harder to read. "Your schedule is on the desk. Breakfast is at 7. Security briefing at 8. Household orientation at 10. Mr. Maddox expects you at dinner at 8 tonight. I just got here. Yes, I have not agreed to dinner. You signed an employment agreement. I signed to be an assistant." June lifted one brow. "In this house, assistants attend dinner when Mr. Maddox requires conversation." Riley let out a quiet breath. "Does anyone here ever just say what they mean?" June considered that. "Rarely. It causes problems." With that, she turned to leave. "Mrs. Whitcomb." June paused. "June," she said, though her tone made it sound less like permission than correction. "Is my mother really safe?" For the first time, something in June's face softened by a fraction. "She is under the care of Dr. Mercer. Mr. Maddox has also assigned 2 private security officers to the hospital floor. They will not enter her room unless needed. They will not frighten her." Riley swallowed. "And if I want to call her, you may call your mother whenever you wish." That answer should have brought relief. Instead, Riley felt the bars of the cage more clearly because they were padded. June left, closing the door behind her. Riley stood alone in the suite. Rain streaked the windows. Somewhere deep in the house, a clock chimed once. She walked to the desk. A black phone waited there beside a leather-bound schedule. The phone screen lit when she touched it. One message. "Welcome to the house. Sleep while you can. CM." Riley stared at it, then set the phone down as if it might bite. She called Karen on her own phone. Her mother answered after the 3rd ring, voice groggy but stronger than before. "Did you get there?" "Yes. Is it awful?" Riley looked around at the marble bathroom, the fresh flowers, the clean sheets that probably cost more than her rent. "No," she said. "That's the problem." Karen was quiet. "Do you feel safe?" Riley walked to the window and looked out. Cameras were tucked beneath the eaves. A guard moved under an umbrella near the far edge of the drive. Beyond the lawn, the dark shapes of trees bent in the rain. I feel watched. That is not the same thing. I know. Karen sighed softly. I wish I could tell you to come home. Riley closed her eyes. Don't. I won't. I need you to get better. I am trying. Try harder, Riley whispered. Karen gave a small laugh. You always did give terrible bedside encouragement for a nursing student. I was going to improve. You still can. Riley opened her eyes. For a moment she saw a future that had seemed dead that morning. Textbooks, clinical shifts, her mother in the kitchen again humming badly, telling Riley to eat something green. The hope hurt again. I'll call you in the morning, Riley said. Lock your door. Riley glanced at the suite door. I will. And Riley. Yes. Do not let beautiful things convince you they are harmless. Riley looked at the rain shining against the glass. I won't. After the call, she unpacked slowly. Clothes in drawers, textbooks on the shelf, her mother's recipe cards in the desk, the lemon bowl on the bedside table because it was ridiculous and hers. She slept badly. Every sound woke her. A footstep in the hall, a pipe shifting in the walls. The soft buzz of her new phone receiving notices she refused to read until morning. When dawn finally pushed pale light through the curtains, Riley felt like she had been awake for years. At 7, she dressed in the black slacks and white blouse. Both fit perfectly, which made her angry in a way she could not explain. Breakfast was served in a staff dining room below the main floor. The room was clean and practical, with a long table, warm lights, and the smell of coffee. Staff members looked at Riley as she entered, then looked down at their plates. June introduced no one. Riley took coffee and toast because her stomach refused anything heavier. A young woman with curly brown hair sat across from her and gave a nervous smile. I'm Tessa, she whispered. Laundry and wardrobe. Riley. I know. Riley looked at her. Tessa flushed. Everyone knows. Before Riley could answer, a man's voice spoke from the doorway. Good. Saves time. Riley turned. The man standing there looked like he had been built for war and then polished for indoor use. Broad shoulders, close-cropped hair, gray eyes that missed nothing. A scar ran near his left temple, pale against brown skin. Graham Pike, he said. Security. Riley picked up her coffee. Of course you are. His mouth did not move. Briefing. Now. June did not look up from her tea. Riley followed Graham through a service corridor and into a room filled with screens. Camera feeds covered the walls. Front gate, back gate, kitchens, garage, gardens, hallways. The exterior of her own wing. Riley stopped in the doorway. You watch everything. Yes. Bathrooms. Number. Bedrooms. No. Should I believe that? No, Graham said. You should verify by checking the sensor map on your tablet. He handed her a sleek tablet from the table. The honesty disarmed her. Riley looked at the screens. Guards moved across different angles like pieces on a board. Graham tapped the tablet. 3 categories of visitors. Business guests stay in designated rooms. Social guests stay in public areas. Private guests are not acknowledged by staff unless Mr. Maddox gives direct instruction. What does private mean? It means you do not ask what private means. Riley looked at him. Does anyone in this house know how suspicious that sounds? Yes. And nobody cares. Suspicion keeps people alive. He showed her emergency exits, panic codes, safe rooms, communication protocols, and the bracelet waiting in a velvet tray. Riley stared at it. What is that tracker? Panic button, medical alert. Wear it. It looks like jewelry. That is the point. I am not wearing a leash. Graham's eyes stayed steady. Last year, a woman refused one at a meeting in Milwaukee. She was missing for 6 hours before anyone knew she had been taken. The room went quiet around that sentence. Riley looked back at the bracelet. Did she survive? Yes. Because of one of those, no. Because Mr. Maddox tore half the city apart until he found her. Riley did not know what to do with that image. She took the bracelet. It was delicate gold with small charms that clicked softly around her wrist. It looked pretty. It felt like a warning. By 10 June had Riley walking through household operations. Deliveries were logged twice. Staff schedules changed every week. No vendor entered without clearance. No personal photographs were allowed in public areas. No names were written where a camera could read them. Flowers were searched. Mail was scanned. Windows stayed locked unless security cleared them. Riley listened, asked questions, and remembered everything. June noticed. By afternoon, Riley was brought to a study near the East Wing and given her first stack of correspondence. Invitations, charity letters, business requests, political notes written in careful language that said nothing and meant plenty. She sorted them by urgency sender and hidden intention because years of serving tables had taught her that people often said the real thing only by accident. At 4, she found a letter from a children's hospital foundation thanking Cole for a donation he had not yet made. The date was wrong. So was the department name. Riley read it twice, then carried it to June. This one is fake. June looked up from her ledger. And you know that how my mother is in oncology. Hospitals changed naming conventions after the merger. This uses the old format. Also, the signature is copied. The pressure is too even. June took the letter. For the first time since Riley arrived, she looked impressed. A little. Bring it to Mr. Maddox. Riley's stomach tightened. He is in a meeting. Then interrupt carefully. Cole's office was not the locked room she had passed in the East Wing, but a smaller working study on the main floor. 2 men stood inside with him when Riley knocked. Both went silent when she entered. Cole looked up. Yes. Riley held out the letter. This is fake. One of the men frowned. Cole took it and read. Why? She explained. Cole listened without interrupting. When she finished, he looked at the man on his left. Find the source. The man nodded and left immediately. Cole looked back at Riley. Good catch. It was not praise the way ordinary bosses gave praise. There was no warmth wrapped around it, no cheerful performance. It was clean and direct. Somehow, it mattered more. Anything else, he asked. Riley looked at the second man who was watching her with open dislike. Yes, she said. Whoever sent it knew you supported hospital charities. They expected your office to process it fast because it looked emotional and harmless. It was not just a scam. It was testing your system. The second man's expression shifted. Cole's did not. Leave us, he told the man. When they were alone, Riley regretted speaking. Cole set the letter on the desk. You are right. I know. Again, that almost smile. Careful, Riley. With being right. With showing people how much you notice. She folded her arms. You hired me for that. I did. Then do not punish me for doing the job. His gaze stayed on her, dark and unreadable. I am not punishing you. I am telling you that in this world being useful makes you valuable. Being valuable makes you visible. Being visible makes you a target. Riley thought of the restaurant, the chandeliers, the command that had pulled her out of the shadows. I was already visible to you. Yes, Cole said, and that changed your life in one night. The room felt smaller. Riley looked away first. At 8, she joined him for dinner. The dining room table was set for 2 at one end, the rest of its polished length stretching into shadow. Candlelight moved over crystal glasses. A silent server placed food in front of Riley, then disappeared through a side door. Cole stood when she entered. It annoyed her that the gesture felt natural instead of theatrical. You survived your first day, he said. Your house tried its best. He gestured to the chair across from him. I heard you offended Graham. I asked reasonable questions. That is usually how it starts. Riley sat. Dinner was roasted chicken with herbs, vegetables cut too precisely, and bread still warm from the oven. Riley had planned not to enjoy it. Her hunger betrayed her almost immediately. Cole watched her take the first bite. You do not have to pretend the food is not good. I was not pretending. You looked personally offended by the chicken. I am offended by most things here. Only most I am pacing myself. This time he smiled fully. It changed him more than it should have. Riley reached for her water. Cole noticed that too. You spoke with your mother. Yes. How is she? The question sounded ordinary, but there was nothing ordinary about the man asking it. She sounded better. Dr. Mercer is excellent. Do you collect doctors the way you collect restaurants? Number doctors are more expensive. Riley almost laughed and hated herself for it. A silence settled, not uncomfortable but charged. Finally, she said, What exactly am I expected to be at these dinners? Honest. That cannot be safe for you. It is useful for me. Why? Because most people tell me what they think I want to hear. You seem committed to doing the opposite. Riley looked at him across the candles. Maybe I just do not like you. Maybe he said. Does that bother you? No. Why not? Because trust that arrives too quickly is usually for sale. The answer stayed with her. After dinner, Cole walked her part of the way back to the East Wing. No guards crowded them, though Riley knew cameras followed every step. They passed the locked office. The door was dark oak with a small biometric panel near the frame. Riley's eyes moved to it before she could stop herself. Cole saw. That room is off limits, I gathered. Do not test that door. I was not planning to. You were thinking about it. She looked at him. You read minds now, no. You looked at it like a question. Riley faced the door again. What is inside my past, my present? Some parts of the future if I fail. That is a very dramatic answer for paperwork. Who said it was paperwork? The hallway seemed to cool. Before Riley could respond, raised voices sounded from inside the room. A man's voice sharp with anger. The docs need a permanent answer, Cole. Your father would never have let Hale push this far. Cole's expression changed instantly. Whatever softness dinner had allowed vanished. Another voice continued behind the door. You keep trying to civilize wolves. Sooner or later they remember their teeth. Cole stepped toward the panel. Go to your room, Riley. She did not move. He looked back. Now. This time the word carried the weight she had heard at the restaurant. Riley turned and walked down the hall, but she did not go far enough not to hear the door open behind her. A man stormed out, tall, red-faced, smelling of cigar smoke and rage. He nearly collided with her at the corner. His eyes swept over her. So this is the waitress. Riley said nothing. He leaned closer, voice low. Pretty girls think men like Cole keep them safe because they are special. They are wrong. He keeps people safe until keeping them costs too much. Cole's voice cut through the hall. Enough, Warren. The man stepped back with a humorless smile. Sure, boss. He walked away, footsteps fading into the main house. Riley turned. Cole stood outside the locked office, one hand still on the open door. Behind him she saw only a slice of darkness, bookshelves, and the faint glow of a screen before he closed it. His face was controlled, but tension lived in his shoulders. You should not have heard that, he said. I hear a lot of things I should not. Yes, Cole replied. That is why you are here. Riley waited. The house was quiet around them, but not peaceful. Who is Hale? She asked. Cole's eyes held hers. A problem. That sounds small. It is not. Rain tapped against the windows at the end of the corridor. Somewhere beyond the walls, the lake moved unseen in the dark. Cole stepped closer, not enough to touch her, but close enough that Riley noticed the warmth of him against the cold hallway. Tomorrow night, there is a hospital gala at Memorial North. You will attend with me as my personal assistant. Riley's heart tightened at the hospital name. My mother's hospital, yes. Why? Because the city's most generous people like to be seen giving money where suffering has good lighting. That is cynical. That is Chicago. Riley studied him. And what am I supposed to do there? Cole's gaze drifted briefly to the bracelet on her wrist, then back to her face. Watch the room. Stay close. And when Vanessa Hale speaks to you, do not believe a single kind word. Riley did not sleep much after Cole said Vanessa Hale's name. The house seemed different once she knew enemies had names. Every hallway felt longer. Every closed door felt less like privacy and more like a secret deciding whether to stay buried. The rain had stopped before dawn, leaving the estate washed clean beneath a pale gray sky. But Riley carried the weight of the night in her shoulders. At breakfast, June placed a cup of coffee in front of her without asking. You look terrible, June said. Good morning to you, too. Looking terrible is not a crime. Looking frightened is. Riley wrapped both hands around the mug. I am not frightened. June looked at her over the rim of her teacup. Then you are not paying attention. Riley had no answer for that. By noon, the house shifted into a controlled kind of motion. Staff moved through rooms with garment bags, polished shoes, sealed envelopes, and quiet urgency. Graham's men checked cars, entrances, communication channels, even the flower arrangements being sent ahead to Memorial North Hospital. Riley watched from the study window as two guards inspected the black sedan that would take her and Cole into the city. She wondered how many people had to prepare when one powerful man decided to attend a charity event. At 3, Tessa arrived at Riley's suite with a navy gown draped over both arms. Riley stared at it. No. Tessa blinked. I did not ask yet. You do not have to. Tessa carried it inside anyway. Mr. Maddox requested formal attire. June approved the cut. Graham approved the lack of pockets. Graham approved a dress. He approves everything that touches a principal. I am not a principal. Tessa gave her a sympathetic look. You are riding in Mr. Maddox's car. That makes you one tonight. The gown was simple dark blue and softer than anything Riley had ever owned. It fell from thin straps into a clean line that looked elegant rather than loud. Tessa helped her dress, then pinned her hair low at the nape of her neck. Riley barely recognized herself in the mirror. She looked expensive. That felt like another kind of costume. Tessa stepped back. You look beautiful. Riley looked at the gold bracelet around her wrist. The panic button was hidden in one charm. I look like bait. Tessa's smile faded. Sometimes bait gets teeth. At 7, Riley descended the staircase. Cole waited in the entrance hall in a black tuxedo, speaking quietly with Graham. He stopped when he saw her. The pause lasted only a second. Riley still felt it. His eyes moved over her not greedily, not carelessly, but with a kind of attention that made the air between them tighten. Then he looked away first, which unsettled her more than if he had stared. You look ready, he said. I look borrowed. No, he said. You look seen. Riley did not know where to put that sentence. Graham cleared his throat. The hospital has 2 public entrances and 1 service entrance. We use the south valet. Cameras inside have been mapped. Miss Brooks stays within visual range unless instructed otherwise. Riley glanced at Cole. Do I get to breathe without clearance? Graham answered before Cole could. Breathing is encouraged. Wandering is not. Cole's mouth curved faintly. Riley followed them outside. The ride into Chicago was quiet. The city appeared slowly beyond the dark glass, first in scattered lights, then in the hard glitter of towers rising over the lake. Riley watched traffic slide beside them and tried not to think about how many people outside had no idea that a war could sit in the back of a luxury car wearing polished cufflinks. Cole looked over a small stack of notes. Riley looked at him. "Are you going to tell me anything useful about Vanessa Hale?" He did not lift his eyes. "She is intelligent, proud, and very good at making cruelty sound like concern. That sounds personal." It was. Riley waited. Cole closed the notes. "Our families arranged an engagement 3 years ago. It was supposed to settle disputes over lakefront interests, construction contracts, and old money neither side likes to mention in daylight. And you ended it." "Yes." Why, Cole looked toward the city lights. "Because marrying a woman to prevent a war still makes her a weapon." Riley studied his profile. "That almost sounds noble." It was not. "I also did not love her. At least you are consistent." "With what?" "Making honesty uncomfortable." A quiet breath escaped him, close to a laugh. They arrived at Memorial North beneath a canopy of white lights. Photographers stood behind velvet ropes. Donors and board members drifted toward the entrance in gowns and tuxedos, faces turned to the cameras as if generosity needed documentation. Cole stepped out first. The noise changed immediately. Voices dipped. Cameras shifted. Men who looked powerful a moment before suddenly seemed aware of their posture. Cole offered Riley his hand. She hesitated only long enough to resent that she needed it, then stepped from the car. Flashbulbs burst around them. His hand rested lightly at her back as they walked, not possessive enough to claim, not distant enough to deny. Riley felt the warmth of it through the gown and hated that it steadied her. Inside the hospital atrium had been transformed. White roses climbed tall glass vases. A string quartet played near the staircase. Champagne moved through the crowd on silver trays. Above it all, banners thanked the donors who had funded the new cancer research wing. Riley looked up at those words and thought of her mother sleeping floors above, connected to machines paid for by the man beside her. Cole noticed. "You can see her after the remarks," he said. Riley kept her eyes forward. "I did not ask. You were about to." She swallowed. "Do not be kind to me in public. It confuses people." Cole leaned closer just enough for his voice to reach her alone. "Then let them be confused." The hospital director hurried toward them, smiling too broadly. "Mr. Maddox, we are honored." Cole shook his hand. "Dr. Whitaker, this is Riley Brooks, my personal assistant." The director turned to her with instant polish. "Miss Brooks, a pleasure." Riley shook his hand and saw the brief calculation in his eyes. Who was she? Why had Cole brought her? How much respect did she require? She gave him a calm smile. "Thank you, doctor. The oncology floor staff have been exceptional." His expression sharpened with interest. "Do you have family in care here?" Cole answered before Riley could. "Miss Brooks values good work." The doctor took the correction smoothly, but Riley felt its purpose. Her mother remained outside the room, outside the gossip, outside the reach of curious donors. For that, she was grateful. They moved through clusters of people who greeted Cole with practiced warmth and hidden nerves. A city councilman laughed too loudly at his own joke. A judge's wife touched Cole's arm with familiarity she did not feel. A developer with silver hair spoke about riverfront zoning while his eyes kept sliding to Riley. She watched everyone. A man near the bar kept touching his wedding ring whenever Cole spoke. A woman from the hospital board smiled at Riley but angled her body toward the photographers. A younger donor asked about Cole's hotels, then quickly corrected himself and said hospitality group. Cole missed very little. Riley realized he noticed what she noticed, but he noticed her noticing too. A voice like silk cut through the room. "Cole, darling." The crowd shifted before the woman even arrived the way water parts around something sharp. Vanessa Hale walked toward them in a silver gown that made the room seem underdressed. She was tall, golden-haired, and perfectly composed with red lips and eyes that smiled at nothing. She kissed Cole's cheek as if she had the right. Riley felt his hand still at her back. Vanessa Cole said, "I did not know you were back in Chicago. Clearly." Vanessa's gaze moved to Riley. "You have been distracted." Cole's voice cooled. "Riley Brooks, my assistant. Riley Vanessa Hale." Vanessa extended a hand. Riley took it. The grip was delicate and painful. "So this is the girl from the restaurant," Vanessa said softly. "The city does love a Cinderella story." Riley held her eyes. "I have always preferred stories where the girl keeps her shoes and her spine." Cole's hand shifted against her back. Vanessa's smile brightened. "How charming." "How practiced," Riley replied. For half a breath the mask slipped. Something cold and ugly looked out from Vanessa's eyes. Then it was gone. Vanessa turned to Cole. "My father sends his regards." "I doubt that. He also sends a reminder. Some old agreements should not be disturbed." Cole's expression did not move. "Tell Preston I keep my own calendar." Vanessa leaned in, still smiling. "You always did mistake loneliness for independence." Cole looked at her with calm disinterest. "And you always mistook arrangement for loyalty." The words landed quietly, but Riley saw them strike. Vanessa stepped back. "Enjoy the evening, Miss Brooks. Hospitals are such useful places. Everyone inside them is desperate for something." Riley's blood cooled. Cole took one step forward. Vanessa's smile turned sweet. "Relax, Cole. I was speaking generally." "No," he said. "You were not." The air around them tightened. Conversations nearby softened as people pretended not to listen. Riley placed her hand lightly over Cole's wrist, not to stop him exactly, to remind him where they were. He looked down at her hand, then at her face. Vanessa saw the exchange. Her smile disappeared. Before she could speak again, a man approached from the side, younger than Cole, but with the same dark eyes and controlled posture. "Owen Maddox," he said to Riley, offering his hand. "Cousin, occasional voice of reason, and full-time disappointment to people who prefer bad decisions." Riley shook his hand. "Riley Brooks. Assistant, apparently. Apparently is how most things begin around Cole." Cole gave him a warning look. Owen smiled. "Vanessa, your father is terrifying a senator near the champagne." Vanessa glanced past him. Across the room, an older man with white hair and a black tuxedo stood speaking to a nervous state senator. Even from a distance, Preston Hale looked like a man who had learned to smile without warmth as a child and perfected it over decades. Vanessa looked back at Riley, careful with borrowed power. Riley answered quietly, careful mistaking it for fear. Vanessa walked away. Cole watched her go, jaw tight. Owen stepped beside Riley. "She hates you already." Riley took a glass of water from a passing tray. "I had a feeling." "That is good. If Vanessa likes you, it usually means you are useful to her father." Riley looked across the room at Preston Hale. "What does he want?" Owen's voice lowered. "What men like Preston always want. What was promised, what was lost, what someone else has. And Cole." Owen glanced at his cousin. "Cole wants the family to survive without becoming a museum of his father's sins." Cole turned. "That is enough." Owen lifted both hands. It was a compliment. "Your compliments are indictments in better suits." Riley almost smiled. The remarks began soon after. People gathered near the stage while the hospital director praised donors' research and the future of cancer care. Riley stood beside Cole listening to words she once would have dismissed as rich people polishing their names. Tonight they sounded more complicated. Money could be vanity. It could also buy medicine. Sometimes the same check did both. After the applause, Cole leaned toward her. "Graham will take you upstairs." Riley looked at him. "You are letting me go out of visual range. I am expanding the range." Graham appeared at her side like a shadow with shoulders. On the 7th floor, the party noise faded into hospital quiet. Riley entered her mother's private room and found Karen awake, sitting up with a blanket over her lap and a book open in her hands. Karen looked up. For a second, she simply stared. "My God," she said. "You look like trouble got invited to dinner." Riley laughed, and the sound nearly broke her. "You look better. I feel better than yesterday. That is a dangerous thing. It makes a woman ambitious." Riley crossed the room and hugged her carefully. Karen held on. "Is he downstairs?" "Yes." "The hotel man." Riley closed her eyes. "Yes." Karen pulled back enough to study her. "He is not just a hotel man." Riley did not answer. Karen nodded slowly as if she had expected silence. "Is he cruel to you?" "No." "Is he kind?" Riley thought of the way Cole turned away when she cried in his office, the way he protected her mother's name from the hospital director, the way his voice went cold when Vanessa threatened without threatening. "Not in any simple way." Karen touched her cheek. "Simple kindness is not the only kind, but complicated kindness can still cut." Riley covered her mother's hand with her own. "I know." Graham knocked once from the hall. "Time." Riley kissed Karen's forehead. "I'll come back tomorrow. You better." When Riley returned downstairs, the gala had shifted from speeches to private negotiations disguised as small talk. Cole stood near the windows with Preston Hale. Vanessa hovered nearby. Riley slowed before reaching them. Cole's eyes found hers immediately. Preston turned as if he had felt the attention move. "So this is Miss Brooks," he said. His voice was smooth, almost grandfatherly. Riley did not offer her hand. "Mr. Hale, Cole has told you about me, no?" Preston smiled. Wise. A man should never introduce his sins too early. Cole's expression hardened. "Careful." Preston ignored him and looked Riley over with polite contempt. "You have a mother upstairs, I believe." The room narrowed. Cole moved faster than Riley expected. One moment he was beside the window, the next he was between her and Preston. "Say another word," Cole said softly. Preston's smile deepened. "Still so emotional. Your father would be embarrassed." Riley could feel people watching without turning her head. She stepped beside Cole, not behind him. "My mother is not part of your conversation." Preston looked amused. "Everything is part of the conversation, Miss Brooks. You are new. You will learn." Riley held his gaze. "I learn quickly." For the first time, Preston's smile thinned. Cole touched her elbow. "We are leaving." They did not rush, but people moved out of their path. Riley felt Vanessa watching all the way to the doors. In the car, Cole was silent. Riley waited until the hospital lights disappeared behind them. "Why did you not tell me Preston Hale knew about my mother?" "I did not know he did." "That is worse." Cole looked at her. Yes, honesty again, uncomfortable, bare. Riley turned toward the window. "I want security changed on her floor. It already is. I want her visitor list locked, done. I want to know when people use her name." Cole's voice softened. "You will." She looked back at him. "Do not manage me with half-truths. I am trying not to. Try harder." His gaze held hers in the dark car. "I will." 2 nights later, Cole took her to the auction. It was held inside an old bank building downtown, all marble columns and gilded ceilings, now owned by an auction house that specialized in art antiques and objects with histories too complicated for museums. Riley wore black this time, simple and severe. The bracelet on her wrist felt heavier. Cole had explained the item in the car. The harbor watch. A silver pocket watch from the Prohibition era, once owned by a dock boss who controlled lake routes when whiskey moved through Chicago under fog and moonlight. Inside the case was an old map, mostly symbolic now, but symbols kept strange power in families that passed grudges down like heirlooms. "Why do you want it?" Riley asked as they entered. Cole looked ahead. "Because Preston believes it belongs to him." That is not an answer. It is the answer tonight. Inside the auction room hummed with expensive tension. Men in tuxedos held numbered paddles. Women in diamonds whispered behind champagne glasses. Security stood near every exit. Riley saw Vanessa first. She moved through the room like a flame under glass, stopping beside bidders, touching arms, murmuring in ears. After she spoke, people lowered their paddles before the auction even began. "She is clearing the field," Riley said. Cole's eyes followed her. "Yes. For Preston. Yes. Does everyone know? Everyone who matters." Riley watched Vanessa laugh with a man twice her age, then glanced toward Cole. "She wants you to see. She always does." The early lots passed in a blur. Jewelry, paintings, rare books. A bronze statue Riley pretended to understand. Cole bid on nothing. Preston sat across the aisle perfectly still, Vanessa beside him. When the harbor watch appeared beneath the lights, the room changed. It was smaller than Riley expected, silver engraved resting in a velvet-lined case. Beautiful in the way old weapons and old promises could be beautiful. The auctioneer began at 500,000. Cole raised his paddle. Preston raised his. Everyone else watched. The number climbed fast. 700, 9, 1.2. Riley felt the room breathing with them. Cole looked almost bored, but his fingers were still. Preston smiled as though money were a language he enjoyed speaking loudly. At 2 million, a woman behind Riley whispered a prayer. At 3 million, Owen muttered from Cole's other side. "This is absurd." Cole raised his paddle again. 3.5. Preston leaned back. 4. A murmur moved through the room. Riley looked at Cole. His face gave away nothing. 4.2, he said. The auctioneer looked toward Preston. Vanessa whispered in her father's ear. Preston stared at Cole for a long moment. Then he lowered his paddle. The gavel struck. The sound seemed too small for the victory. Cole stood. Riley walked with him toward the private settlement room, her senses sharp. Graham's men shifted around them, subtle but close. Preston intercepted them near a marble pillar. "Well done," he said. "A great deal of money for a dead man's watch." Cole's voice was calm. "Then you should thank me for saving you the expense." Preston's gaze slid to Riley. "Do you know what happened to the last assistant who walked this closely beside him?" Riley felt the air leave her lungs. Cole went still. Preston continued gently, almost kindly. "Tyler Grant, Harvard-educated. Brilliant boy. Vanished after he disappointed Cole. People say all kinds of things." Vanessa smiled beside him. Riley looked at Cole, but his eyes were on Preston. "That name does not belong in your mouth," Cole said. Preston lifted one shoulder. "Names are only dangerous when the dead answer." Riley's skin went cold. Cole stepped closer to Preston. For a moment, Riley saw the violence everyone believed lived inside him. It was not loud. It did not flash. It settled over him like night over water. Then he looked at Riley. The violence did not disappear. He chose not to use it. "Come," he said. He guided her past Preston and Vanessa without another word. The ride home was tense enough to touch. The harbor watch sat in its locked case between them on the seat, silver under the dim car light. Riley stared at it because looking at Cole felt too dangerous. After several miles, he spoke. Ask. Riley kept her voice even. Who was Tyler Grant? Cole looked out at the city passing beyond the glass. My assistant before you. And did he vanish? Yes. The answer hit hard. Riley turned toward him. Is he dead? Cole looked at her then, and for the first time since she had met him, he looked tired in a way power could not hide. No. Why should I believe you? You should not believe me because I say it. The car turned away from the main road. Riley looked out. Where are we going? Cole did not answer immediately. Outside, the clean lights of downtown gave way to darker streets and the black reach of the lakefront docks. The driver slowed near an old warehouse where water slapped against concrete and the city sounded very far away. Cole opened his door. Because I am going to show you where the story ended, he said. Riley looked from him to the empty warehouse, then to the silver watch resting between them. Her hand closed around the charm on her bracelet. Cole saw it. Good, he said quietly. Keep your hand there. Riley kept her hand on the bracelet as she stepped out of the car. The warehouse stood at the edge of the water, its brick walls dark with age and lake mist. A broken sign hung above a side door swinging gently in the wind. Beyond it, Lake Michigan moved like black glass, restless and cold under the city glow. The air smelled of rust-rain gasoline and old secrets. Cole did not touch her as they walked inside. That mattered. He opened the door himself, then stepped back so she could enter first if she chose. Riley looked at him, then at the dark mouth of the building. You expect me to walk in there, no? But you want me to. Yes. Those are not the same thing. I know. The answer was quiet enough to make her look at him longer than she meant to. His face was unreadable in the pale light from the car, but something in his eyes had changed since Preston Hale spoke Tyler Grant's name. The hard control was still there, but beneath it sat weariness. Not weakness. Something older and more dangerous than that. Riley walked inside. Cole followed. The warehouse was mostly empty. Moonlight slipped through high, cracked windows and laid silver bars across the concrete floor. Old shipping crates lined one wall. Chains hung from iron beams above, swaying slightly when the wind pushed through gaps in the brick. Riley had expected blood ropes, a chair under a hanging bulb. Something from the rumors people whispered when they wanted to scare themselves. Instead, there was dust. Dust, silence, and a table near the center of the room. On the table sat a framed photograph of a young man with sandy hair and bright eyes. Beside it lay a folded newspaper clipping and a sealed envelope yellowed at the edges. Riley stopped. Tyler Grant Cole said. She looked at the photograph. He was younger than she had expected, clean-cut, smart-looking. The kind of man who might have smiled easily before fear taught him not to. He worked for me for almost 3 years, Cole said. Harvard Business School. Quick with numbers, faster with people. He could read a balance sheet and a liar with equal skill. Riley looked around the empty warehouse. And he betrayed you. Yes. The word landed without anger. That made it heavier. Cole moved toward the table but did not touch the photograph. His sister needed a transplant. Insurance denied it. The hospital delayed. He needed money fast, and Preston Hale found out before I did. Riley's throat tightened. That sounds familiar. Cole looked at her. Yes. You think Preston wanted me because of my mother, too. I think Preston uses pain the way other men use keys. Riley stared at Tyler's photograph. What did he sell? Schedules, guest names, private meetings. Enough to hurt me, enough to put my family under federal pressure, enough to let Hale move against 2 of my businesses. And you brought him here. Cole nodded. I did. Riley's fingers tightened around the charm on her bracelet. What happened? Cole's jaw worked once. My father would have killed him. Men at that time expected me to do the same. They stood in this room waiting for it. Tyler stood where you are standing now, crying so hard he could barely speak. Riley could almost see it. The young man. The circle of silent men. Cole caught between blood and command. What did you do? I asked him one question. What question? Cole looked at the photograph. Was it worth it? The wind slid through the warehouse and the chains above them whispered. What did he say? He said no. Then he said yes. Because his sister lived. Riley closed her eyes for a second. Cole continued. I gave him a new name, enough money to leave, and one rule. He could never come back to Chicago. Not for me, not for his sister, not for ghosts. Riley opened her eyes. That was mercy. No, Cole said. Mercy lets a man go home. I made sure he never could. She looked at him then. He was not asking her to forgive him. He was not polishing the story until it shone. He was showing her the blade and the handle at the same time. Why tell me here? Because Preston wanted you afraid of the dark. I would rather show you what is actually in it. Riley stepped closer to the table and picked up the newspaper clipping. It was from Seattle. A small business profile about a man named Thomas Gray opening a neighborhood accounting office with his sister as co-owner. Tyler looked different in the photo, older and thinner, but alive. Riley let out a breath she had not known she was holding. You kept track of him. Yes. Why Cole's eyes moved to hers. Because choosing not to kill a man does not mean you stop being responsible for what your world did to him. Riley placed the clipping back on the table. For a moment, the warehouse felt less like a place of threat and more like a confession built from concrete and cold air. When they returned to the car, Riley did not speak. The harbor watch sat in its case between them, its silver surface catching the passing streetlights. Cole looked out his window. Riley looked at him through the reflection. He was dangerous. That had not changed. But danger was not the only truth in him. The next morning, Riley went to see her mother. Lakeshore Medical looked almost peaceful in daylight. The private room faced the water and sunlight spread across the floor in soft squares. Karen was sitting up in bed, a pale green scarf wrapped around her head, a magazine open on her lap. You look like you have not slept, Karen said. You look like you have been waiting to say that. I am a mother. We store observations for later use. Riley kissed her cheek. Karen smelled like lotion and clean sheets instead of antiseptic. That small change nearly made Riley cry. They talked about ordinary things because ordinary things had become precious. Hospital food. The nurse who hummed Motown songs off-key. A therapy dog named Biscuit who had visited the floor and tried to climb into Karen's bed like he paid rent. Riley almost relaxed. Then a nurse entered with a bouquet of white tulips. These just came for you, she said. Karen smiled. For me? Look at that. I am popular. Riley's eyes went to the flowers, then to the card tucked between the stems. Her body knew before her mind did. She took the card. On the front, written in black ink, were 5 words. Cole cannot protect everyone. Inside the envelope was a photograph of Karen asleep in the hospital bed taken from inside the room. Riley went very still. Karen's smile faded. Riley folded the card and slipped the photograph into her purse before her mother could see it. Wrong room, she said. Her voice sounded normal. She was proud of that. She walked into the hallway and called Graham. He answered immediately. Miss Brooks, someone got into my mother's room. A pause. Where are you, Lakeshore? 7th floor. Stay by the room. Do not move. No. Listen to me. Lock the floor without alarming her. Check every nurse, every visitor, every camera between midnight and now. I want the flowers bagged, not thrown away. There is a card and a photograph. Who saw it? Me. Does Mr. Maddox know he will? She ended the call and dialed Cole. He answered with one word. Riley. They reached my mother. Silence. No anger. No question. Just a sudden absence of air on the line. Then his voice came low. Are you hurt? No. Is Karen? No. I am on my way. Do not come in like a storm. Riley. She is finally breathing like she might live. You come in with men and guns and that look on your face, and Preston wins twice. There was a beat of quiet. Tell me what you need. The question almost undid her. I need security clean, not loud. I need to know how they got in. I need my mother not to find out someone stood over her while she slept. Done. And Cole, yes. I am not leaving her room until I choose to. I was not going to ask you to. She believed him. That scared her too. For the next 3 hours, Riley sat beside her mother and played cards with a calm she did not feel. Men in hospital badges appeared and disappeared outside the door. Graham came once dressed in a plain coat and spoke to Riley in the hall. The nurse who delivered the flowers is real. The florist is not. Order was paid in cash through a courier. Camera on the East Service elevator froze for 9 minutes at 2:13 this morning. Inside, help maybe. Riley looked back through the glass at Karen, who was pretending not to watch them. No, not maybe. Flowers were also sent to the estate yesterday. Same wrapping. Graham's eyes narrowed. You noticed that white paper? Black string. No logo. Too elegant for no logo. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Riley went back to the room. Karen looked at her over the cards. You are lying badly today. Riley sat down. I am improving in other areas. Is this because of him? Riley picked up her cards. It is because of the world around him. Karen touched the edge of the blanket. Those are not always separate. Riley said nothing because she had begun to fear that was true. That evening, Vanessa Hale came to the hospital. She did not come with guards. She did not come loudly. She appeared in the visitor's lounge wearing a cream coat, and a soft expression like sympathy had dressed itself for a photograph. Riley found her waiting near the windows. You are hard to reach, Vanessa said. I try. Vanessa looked toward the nurse's station. Your mother seems stronger. Riley's anger rose so fast she nearly tasted it. Say her name and I will break something expensive. Vanessa smiled faintly. There she is, the spine under the waitress uniform. What do you want? To give you advice. I would rather drink bleach. Cole will not save you by loving you. Riley's face did not move. Vanessa stepped closer. He will protect you until protection becomes a liability. He will tell himself you are different. He will mean it when he says it. That is the tragedy. Men like Cole believe their own exceptions. Riley studied her. You sound like someone who wanted to be one. The words struck exactly where Riley aimed them. Vanessa's eyes sharpened. I was raised for his world, and still he walked away. Vanessa's face went cold. My father can make your mother's treatment disappear with one call. Riley's pulse hammered, but her voice stayed even. Then he should make it. Vanessa blinked. Riley stepped closer. Go ahead. Hurt a sick woman in a hospital bed. Let every donor downstairs, every board member, every doctor, every politician who smiles for Cole's checks find out Preston Hale uses cancer patients to send messages. Vanessa stared at her. Riley lowered her voice. You think because I am scared, I am easy. I am scared all the time. It has made me very careful. For once, Vanessa had no polished answer. Riley left her by the window. Back at the estate, Cole was waiting in his office, not the public study. The locked room in the east wing. The door stood open. Riley stopped at the threshold. Inside was not the den of crime she had imagined. It was a large, beautiful room lined with bookshelves, security screens, old maps, and heavy filing cabinets. The harbor watch rested in its open case on the desk. A wall display showed the lakefront real estate holdings, hotels, union offices, shipping companies' court records, and faces connected by thin lines of red and white. It looked less like an empire than a body with nerves exposed. Cole stood near the window. Graham was at the desk with June and Owen. Papers were spread in front of them. Riley walked in without waiting for permission. "The flowers," she said. Graham turned a file toward her. Same supplier name used for 3 deliveries to the estate in the past 2 weeks. June's mouth tightened. "That supplier is not on the approved vendor list." "But the flowers entered anyway," Riley said. June looked wounded by the fact. They were marked for the chapel room. Memorial arrangement. "I approved them." Riley leaned over the logs. The entries were neat. Too neat. "Who signed delivery intake?" Graham answered. "Daniel Cross, junior driver, 6 months on staff." Riley scanned the times. Every delivery came within 12 hours of a change in Cole's movement. Owen looked at her. "You are saying the flowers are messages?" "No," Riley said. "The flowers are receipts." Cole's eyes stayed on her. "Explain." "Someone inside the estate sends updated schedules through delivery confirmations. The fake florist passes them to Hale. That is how they knew when security shifted. That is how they reached my mother. They are not guessing. They are being told." June whispered, "Daniel's mother works in a care home." Riley looked at her. "Debt." Graham checked his tablet. "Gambling. Older brother. Hale owned book." Cole's expression changed. Riley saw it. The cold arrival of old instinct. "No," she said. Everyone looked at her. Cole spoke quietly. "You do not know what I was going to say." "Yes, I do." Owen cleared his throat. "She probably does." Riley did not look away from Cole. "Bring him in. Scare him if you have to. But do not turn him into Tyler Grant before we know who else Hale is holding by the throat." Cole's jaw tightened. "He put your mother at risk." "Yes?" "And Preston wanted you angry enough to forget why." The room went silent. Cole looked at Graham. "Bring Daniel to the lower office. Alive and untouched." Graham nodded and left. Owen watched Riley with new interest. June looked like she was deciding whether to respect her or fear the disruption she represented. Cole looked at her as if the room had shifted around one fixed point. Later that night, Hale's men came through the service gate. The estate did not erupt. It tightened. Lights stayed low. Staff were moved quietly behind locked doors. Graham's team took positions without shouting. Riley stood in the security room with June watching camera feeds as 2 dark vehicles stopped near the outer service entrance. Daniel had given up an access code. Thanks to Riley, the code was already dead. 3 men stepped from the first vehicle. One carried a tablet. Another checked the gate keypad. The third looked toward the tree line, uneasy. Cole entered the security room in shirt sleeves, a gun holstered at his side. Riley stared at it. He noticed, "I do not intend to use it. That depends on them. That depends on me." The gate opened 3 inches, then locked. Graham's men appeared from the dark with weapons raised. The Hale men froze. No shots, no screaming, just the quiet click of power turning around. On the monitor, Graham stepped into frame and spoke to the men. Riley could not hear the words, but she saw the moment they understood. Their shoulders changed, their hands lifted. Cole watched without satisfaction. Riley stood beside him close enough to feel the heat of his anger. "He threatened your mother," Cole said. "Yes, I can end this tonight." "Yes." He looked at her. "You are going to tell me not to." Riley watched the men on the screen being searched and restrained. "No." I am going to tell you Preston wants a dead body. Bodies make grief. Grief makes mistakes. Mistakes make wars. He knows your father's playbook, so stop reading from it." Cole's eyes darkened. "What do you suggest make him small?" Owen, who had just entered, paused. Riley continued the shape of the idea forming as she spoke. "Preston Hale does not run on fear alone. He needs clean money to hide dirty money. He needs donors, board seats, development permits, hospital charities, investment partners who like his tuxedo more than they fear his hands. Pull those threads. Quietly." Cole stared at her. Riley turned to the wall map and pointed to a cluster of names. "He used the hospital to threaten my mother. That means he has access there. Find it. He used a fake florist. That means couriers and cash points. Find those. He sent men through your gate. That means he needed proof you could be touched. Do not give him rage. Give him silence. Give him closed accounts, canceled meetings, delayed permits, nervous partners." Owen smiled slowly. "Paper cuts." Riley looked at him. "Enough of them bleed." Cole did not smile. He looked at Riley as though something final had just become visible. The captured men were taken away before dawn. Daniel Cross confessed by sunrise, shaking and sick with fear. His brother's debt had bought him. Preston's people had promised not to hurt his mother if he fed them schedules. Cole listened from behind the desk in the lower office. Riley stood near the wall against Graham's advice and Cole's silence. Daniel cried when he realized Riley's mother had been the target. "I did not know," he said. "I swear I did not know." Riley believed him. That did not erase anything. Cole leaned forward. "You will leave this state by noon. Your mother will be moved to a care home Preston does not know about. Your brother's debt is mine now. If you ever speak my name again, you will wish Graham had handled this instead of me." Daniel nodded so hard he nearly collapsed. After he was taken out, Riley looked at Cole. "You spared him." Cole's face was hard. "I removed him. That is not the same thing." "No," he said. "But it is closer than I used to get." By mid-morning, Cole called Riley to the private office. The room was empty except for him and a folder on the desk. Riley knew before he spoke. The folder was too thick, too clean, too generous. Cole stood behind the desk wearing the same shirt from the night before, sleeves rolled to his forearms. He looked like he had not slept. He looked like a man who had spent the night holding violence by the throat. "Sit," he said. Riley stayed standing. "Say it." He looked at the folder. New identity. Tuition paid anywhere you choose. An apartment in Seattle, Boston, or San Diego. Continued care for your mother under Dr. Mercer. Security for both of you until Hale loses interest. Riley stared at him. "And I disappear like Tyler." "No. Tyler was exiled. You would be free." The word sounded strange in that room. Riley stepped closer to the desk. Why Cole's face changed only slightly. "Because Preston knows you matter. To your business, to me." The honesty struck harder than any lie could have. Cole continued. "That makes you a target. Staying here makes you more than staff. It puts you in rooms where enemies will look for weakness and allies will test your spine. It gives you power with a price attached." Riley touched the folder but did not open it. "And if I do not take it," Cole came around the desk slowly, "then you stay with full knowledge, no half-truths, no locked rooms except the ones you choose not to enter. You learn the legitimate businesses, the old obligations, the debts, the enemies, the lines I have crossed, and the ones I am trying to erase. As your assistant. No." The air shifted. "As my partner." Riley looked up. Cole was close but not touching her. He had learned that about her. Space was not distance. Sometimes it was respect. "My partner in business," he said. "In strategy. in the transformation of this family before the old ways drag us under. Riley searched his face, and in your life his eyes held hers, if you choose it. The words were careful, not soft, not romantic in the way movies made romance easy, but Riley felt the truth of them all the way through her. She thought of her mother's hospital room, the photograph, Vanessa's poisoned smile, Preston's calm cruelty, Daniel crying under the weight of someone else's debt, Tyler Grant alive in Seattle because Cole had chosen exile over blood. She thought of the restaurant and the fork striking china like a gunshot. She had been chosen then. This was different. Now she was being asked. Riley opened the folder and looked at the life inside. Safe apartment, new name, school, distance. A world where Cole Maddox became a strange chapter she survived and never explained. It was beautiful. It was not hers anymore. She closed the folder. I have conditions. Cole's eyes sharpened. Name them. No innocent families, no hospitals, no children, no using sickness as leverage, not even against enemies. Agreed. No revenge because it feels clean in the moment. That one will be harder. I did not ask for easy. His mouth almost curved. Agreed. If I help you build legitimate power, you do not pull me into darkness every time some old man says your father would have spilled blood. Cole absorbed that. My father's ghost has a loud voice. Then learn to stop answering. Silence settled between them. Cole looked at her with something unguarded and almost painful. You understand what staying means. Riley moved the folder back across the desk toward him. I understand what leaving would cost me. That is not the same. No, she said. But it is the answer I have. Cole did not take the folder at first. Then he closed his hand over it and slid it into the desk drawer. The sound of the drawer shutting felt final. Riley let out a breath. Cole stepped closer. Not enough to trap her. Enough to be honest. I will not be an easy man to stand beside. I was not looking for easy. What were you looking for? Riley thought about it. Then she answered with the only truth that felt clean. A reason to stop being invisible. Cole looked at her like the room had gone quiet around those words. You were never invisible to me. No, Riley said. You were just the first dangerous man to say it out loud. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Cole reached for her hand slowly enough that she could refuse. She did not. His fingers closed around hers, warm and steady. Outside the office windows, morning light touched the wet grass beyond the estate. The storm had passed, but the trees still dripped with it. Somewhere in the house, phones rang and men prepared for a different kind of war one fought with contracts, names, favors, and silence. Riley stood beside Cole Maddox with her hand in his and felt the old life loosen its grip. She was still afraid, but fear no longer got to choose for her. By noon, the estate no longer felt like a house preparing for violence. It felt like a machine being repaired while still running. Phones rang behind closed doors. Couriers arrived at the gate and were turned away unless their names matched Graham's revised list. Owen took over the long table in the library with 3 laptops, 2 legal pads, and a look of deep satisfaction that made Riley suspect he enjoyed clean warfare more than he admitted. June moved through the rooms with quiet authority, removing weak points the way another woman might remove dust. Cole did not raise his voice once. That was how Riley knew he was furious. He stood in the private office before the wall map sleeves still rolled eyes moving from name to name, company to company, favor to favor. Preston Hale's world looked powerful at first glance. Shipping contracts, construction firms, charitable boards, real estate holdings along the lakefront, political friendships disguised as golf memberships. Riley stood beside Owen at the desk, reading through donor records from the hospital gala. This one, she said, tapping a name with her pen. the Alden Foundation. They funded the same cancer wing Preston tried to use as pressure. Owen leaned over her shoulder. They also co-own a redevelopment parcel with Hale Harbor Group. Then they are not just donors. They are cover. Cole looked back. Can you prove it? Not yet. Owen smiled. She says that like it means no. It usually means, give me an hour. Riley ignored him and scanned the next document. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep, but her mind felt strangely clear. Years of surviving had taught her to separate panic from action. Panic could wait. Action had better hands. By evening, the first thread came loose. The fake florist had delivered more than flowers. It had delivered event schedules, hospital access notes, and security shifts to a courier service registered under a dead man's name. That courier service shared an address with a shell office used by one of Preston's charities. Cole wanted names. Riley wanted patterns. Together they got both. At midnight, Owen made 3 calls to investors who disliked scandal more than they liked Preston Hale. By breakfast, 2 meetings connected to Hale Harbor Group had been postponed. By lunch, a city permit review was delayed. By late afternoon, a hospital board member quietly asked whether Preston's foundation had exposed Memorial North to legal risk. No threats, no broken bones, no blood on marble floors. Just silence spreading through a network that had always depended on people being too afraid to look closely. Preston called Cole at 7 that evening. Cole put the call on speaker. "You have been busy," Preston said. Cole leaned against the desk. "I slept badly." Riley stood near the window, watching dusk settle over the gardens. Preston's voice remained smooth. "You think paperwork can frighten me?" "No," Cole said. "I think prison can." A pause, then a soft laugh. "Careful, son. Your father knew better than to invite government eyes into family matters. My father died believing fear was a legacy." "And what do you believe?" Cole looked at Riley. "That some legacies rot from the inside." Preston's voice sharpened. "You let that girl teach you weakness." Riley stepped closer to the phone. "No, Mr. Hale. I taught him patience." The silence on the line changed shape. "Miss Brooks," Preston said. "Still playing at power?" "No," Riley replied. "I am learning how much of yours was borrowed." Cole watched her with a look she could feel more than see. Preston ended the call. 2 days later, Vanessa appeared outside Lakeshore Medical. Riley had just walked Karen through the quiet garden behind the building. Her mother moved slowly, one hand on Riley's arm, but she was moving. That alone felt impossible enough to stop time. Karen saw Vanessa first. "Is that trouble?" Riley followed her gaze. Vanessa stood near the glass entrance in a pale coat hair pinned perfectly, expression calm. The last time Riley had seen her, Vanessa had threatened sickness with a smile. Now she looked less certain, though pride kept her spine straight. "Go inside," Riley said. Karen squeezed her arm. "I am sick, not stupid." "Mom?" Karen sighed. "Fine. But if she touches you, I am throwing my water bottle." Riley kissed her cheek and waited until a nurse walked Karen inside. Then she approached Vanessa. "You should not be here." Vanessa looked through the glass at Karen. "She looks better. Do not pretend you care." "I do not," Vanessa said. "But I know what it looks like when someone survives something they were not supposed to." Riley stopped a few feet away. "What do you want?" "My father is losing friends. Maybe they were never friends." Vanessa's lips tightened. "You are enjoying this?" "No." "I am paying attention." Vanessa studied her. "Cole will change for a while. Men always do when they believe a woman has made them new. Then pressure returns. Blood calls to blood." Riley looked at the city beyond the hospital, the traffic, the lake, the hard shine of glass towers under winter sun. "You keep talking like Cole is the only one choosing." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. I know his world better than you do. You know the version that needed you silent and useful." Vanessa flinched barely. Riley lowered her voice. "I know enough to see why you hate me. It is not because he chose me. It is because I get to say no." For a moment, Vanessa looked almost young. Then the mask returned. "You think that will last?" Riley stepped past her toward the entrance. "It already has." 3 weeks later, Preston Hale agreed to meet. Not at a warehouse. Not in a restaurant full of whispers. At an attorney's office on the 32nd floor of a loop tower with glass walls, city views, and enough witnesses to make violence look vulgar. Cole sat at one end of the conference table. Preston sat at the other. Riley sat beside Cole, not behind him. Owen reviewed the documents. Graham stood near the door. Vanessa stood by the windows, arms folded, watching her father's face as if learning the cost of old pride. The terms were clean. Preston would withdraw from 3 lakefront development projects. His foundation would resign from the hospital board. Hale Harbor Group would release disputed shipping interests tied to the old routes. In exchange, Cole would keep the evidence out of federal hands unless Preston touched Riley Caron or the Maddox estate again. Preston read the agreement slowly. Then he looked at Riley. "You have made him soft." Cole started to speak, but Riley placed a hand lightly over his. "No," she said. "I made him harder to predict." Preston's eyes moved to their hands. That seemed to anger him more than the contract. He signed. The pen made a small sound on the paper. It was not dramatic. No music swelled. No one gasped. A man lost power in a room with beige carpet and bottled water. Some victories looked boring from the outside. On the drive home, Cole did not speak for a long time. Riley finally looked over. "You wanted to hurt him?" "Yes." "Do you still?" "Yes." She appreciated the honesty. "Then why did you sign?" Cole looked at the contract folder resting between them. "Because if I destroyed him, someone worse would come hungry. If I contained him, everyone saw the boundary. And because of my conditions." His eyes moved to hers. "And because you were right." Riley leaned back against the seat. That sounded painful. It was. She smiled despite herself. Outside the window, Chicago passed in steel brick and evening light. Spring came slowly to Lake Forest. Snow shrank into dirty white piles beneath the trees. The garden paths softened. Buds appeared on branches that had looked dead for months. Karen's hair began growing back in soft silver-brown curls, and she complained that it made her look like a startled baby bird. Riley started taking classes online first, then 2 evenings a week in person, returning to nursing school with notebooks, tired eyes, and a security driver who pretended not to notice when she studied flashcards in the back seat. The Maddox world changed too, not all at once, and not without resistance. Some men left when Cole closed businesses that had survived too long in shadow. Others stayed because Owen found them better jobs in hotels, restaurants, logistics, and construction companies that could withstand daylight. June created new household protocols that made secrecy less dependent on fear and more dependent on discipline. Graham complained about every change, then implemented them better than anyone. Riley worked beside Cole through it all. Sometimes they fought. In the office. In the car. Once in the garden so loudly that June shut 3 windows and pretended not to hear a word. Cole was not easy. Neither was she. But he listened. And when he failed, she made him start again. One evening, Riley found the harbor watch inside its glass case in Cole's office. Beneath it was a new engraved plate. Power is a choice. So is mercy. She touched the glass. Cole entered behind her. "You did that, I had it made. It sounds like something I would say." "It is." She turned. He stood near the doorway, jacket off, tie loose, the hard lines of him softened by lamplight. "My mother's latest scans came back," Riley said. "I know." "Of course you do." A faint smile. "Dr. Mercer called." Riley tried to speak, but the words caught. Cole crossed the room carefully. "She is in remission," he said. Hearing it in his voice broke the last wall she had built around hope. Riley covered her mouth. Tears came fast and silent. Cole stopped in front of her, close enough to hold her, far enough to ask without words. She stepped into him. His arms closed around her. For a long moment there was no empire, no enemy, no debt, no bargain made under chandeliers. There was only Riley breathing against Cole's chest while the impossible became real. "You saved her," she whispered. Cole's hand moved gently over her back. "You did. I did not have $35,000. "No," he said. "You had courage. I had money. Yours cost more." She laughed through tears, and he held her until she could stand on her own. 3 months after the night at the Velvet Crown, the Maddox family gathered for its annual spring dinner. The estate glowed under warm light. Long tables filled the ballroom. Relatives, executives, trusted staff, doctors, partners, and old family allies moved through the room with careful curiosity. They all knew something had changed. They just did not know how much. Karen sat near June, wearing a green dress and making the house manager laugh despite June's best efforts not to. Owen raised a glass across the room when Riley entered. Graham nodded once from near the door, which from him felt like applause. Riley wore black, simple and elegant. On her finger was Cole's grandmother's ring. Not a claim, a promise. Cole stood when she reached the head table. The room quieted. Riley sat beside him. Not at the edge. Not in the background. Beside him. Cole rose with his glass in hand. "Some of you remember the night I brought Riley Brooks into this house," he said. "A few of you thought I had lost my judgment," Owen murmured. "A few." Quiet laughter moved through the room. Cole's gaze stayed on Riley. She was clearing plates in a restaurant full of powerful men. None of them saw her. That was their failure. Riley felt Karen watching, felt June sitting straighter, felt every eye in the room shift toward her. Cole continued. Riley saw what this family was. More than that, she saw what it could become. She asked for rules where we had habits. She asked for mercy where we had pride. She asked for a future that could stand in the light. His voice lowered. And then she helped build it. He raised his glass. To Riley. The room stood. Glasses lifted. Crystal caught the light. For one breath, Riley saw herself as she had been that first night, exhausted, invisible, carrying plates no one cared she was strong enough to hold. Cole looked down at her. She took his hand beneath the table. Outside, beyond the windows, Lake Michigan shone under the moon, wide and dark and endless. Riley Brooks had entered his world because fear gave her no other door. She stayed because she had found her own power inside it.